Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey,
So, thank you for having me over tonight. I'm very excited to talk about the things we're going to talk about tonight. I'm excited to get to know you better, and I'm especially excited for your enthusiasm in sharing the Book of Mormon. We'll get to that in a minute. So, first, I'd like to ask you just a little bit about yourself. I know a lot of people in Fraser Ward already know you. I know Hubert, you were bishop for many years uh, before we met, so I'm sure a lot of people are very comfortable talking to you and being around you and respect the mantle that you've had. Uh, so if you guys would just tell me a little bit about yourself so I can get to know you a little better.
Well, we met when I was a missionary in France, and in the city of Grenoble, he was my ward mission leader. And so we got to know each other. There were 6 missionaries in that city, and he used to like to take us hiking and take us on P days and taught with us. And so we knew their family well, and his parents were really welcoming to the missionaries, and so we would be at their house a lot. And then when I came home from my mission, um, I got a message from him that he wanted to come and visit the States for the first time. And he wanted to see the Salt Lake Temple and some of the Utah sites. And at the time, my family lived in Sandy, Utah. So I said, yeah, come and we'll show you around. And so he came and visited us. And basically, we were engaged in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then he kind of rearranged the rest of his trip and stayed in Utah. He was going to go visit several different cities, but he ended up mostly staying in Utah. And then he went back to France for, I don't know, 6 or 9 months.
to April.
And then we got married in Utah.
Oh,
And then we
okay.
moved back to France and lived there for 7 years. Had our first 3 kids there. And then moved back here in 2001.
1999, the first time.
Yeah.
Then
We've kind of
stayed
gone
here
back
for
and
2
forth.
years, then went back to France for a year, and then came back here in 2002.
Okay, so in visiting the States, you had very clear intentions then. It wasn't just visiting the States that
No,
you got.
not really, because I wasn't just visiting Amy.
Uh-huh.
I was visiting basically a bunch of missionaries that, when I was the war mission leader, almost all the missionaries from the U.S. would say, "Hey, Bear, if you ever come to the U.S., come see us." You know, so when I came to the U.S., I stayed a week in California. I stayed with missionary there, then went to Utah, and my first stop was at Amy's and her family. And then after that, I went to Logan, stayed with another missionary and his family, then went to Lake Powell for a week as well. I had other plans to go to New Mexico. I had a companion there, Colorado as well. But those plans, that I canceled, and I went back and stayed with Amy and her family for 3 weeks till the end of my stay in the U.S. basically. And it's because when I went to Amy, that first evening, I remember it's like meeting an old, a long time friend, you know, we just hit it off.
Yeah.
Right away, don't you think so? That's and so we stayed and chatted until 2 a.m. or something like that, and we did that just about every day. And when it was time for me to leave and go to Logan, I was thinking, what do I do? Do I tell Amy about my feelings, or do I wait until I'm done with my whole trip back to France and then say, hey, I really like you, what do we do now? You know, and so I decided, that's why she said, and we consider we're engaged after 3 days. I decided to tell her right there and see. And I think we had shared feelings, and so that was good.
What an awesome example of just acting on a prompting and following that, really, right? You just didn't. You didn't deny it.
Well, remember also that I had seen her as a missionary
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
France, and I knew she was a obedient, hardworking missionary, you know. So I thought, oh, she's a good lady.
The quality of
Yeah,
character. Yeah.
And so, and I was 27 at the time, you know. And I was just ready.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I knew
Very
what I
cool.
wanted.
No, that's wonderful. That's a great story. All right.
I
So
like it.
you go through, and then how long from that point you go back to France? How long until you get married at that point?
8 months now. I went back in early August, and we got married. We were supposed to get married in the next summer in July,
Okay.
and I think very quickly, early October, we said we can't do it. Or in October, we said no, it's too long, we can't do that. So because basically we wrote each other,
Uh-huh.
Amy every day. Amy wrote me every day, and we maybe called once a month or a couple of times.
No internet, you know.
Yeah.
No cell phones. It was just
Okay.
written letters,
Yes.
Yeah, and so we
cassette tapes.
cassette tapes.
Oh yeah.
Those things.
Mixtapes, or you just talked
Just
into
talked.
them?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, with music sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, and so we thought, oh, we can't wait until next summer, you know. And so we
Yeah.
decided to get married in April. I was working as a school counselor, so I had 2 weeks vacation,
Uh-huh.
and actually because I was getting married, I got an extra week, and so it worked out well. You know, married in April, and we flew back together.
Okay. Very cool. What was that experience like for you, going on your mission there, coming back, and having this quick decision, and now you have a clear direction in life with a new partner? Like what was that like?
I was just blissfully unaware. You know, I was just
Okay.
excited, happy. Everything was great. I loved him. I loved his family. I loved the ward. My mom kind of teases me about this because she was so sad that I was leaving, and she said I just skipped off hand in hand with him and broke her heart. But
Yeah.
I was just happy, you know. And of course it was hard in some ways to be so far away, but mostly it just felt right, and we were really happy. We never had that like first year. People say your first year of marriage is so hard, and ours was not like that. Ours was just, we were just really happy, and everything's fine, you know, everything's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds like you entered in to that relationship and that covenant without guile. And that's probably why you were able to
That's a nice way of saying
skate
it.
through that first year.
Yeah, and his family was so nice and so
Uh-huh.
supportive, and I knew people there, and it was fun to go back.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, were you both born into the covenant?
Yeah.
Basically? Yeah.
Well,
Amy
you
was.
weren't. Yeah.
My parents joined the church when I was 8, and initially we were brought up Catholics.
Mhm.
My mom was active in the Catholic Church. She taught catechism.
Mhm.
It's kind of how she was brought to the church. I don't know that we have time to tell the story here. But anyway, so yeah, she initially is the one who was interested. My dad told the missionaries, they invited him to listen to the discussions as well, and then to be baptized. He said, maybe if my wife changes, I might be interested, you know.
If I see a notable
Yeah,
change.
yeah. And he probably was baptized 6 months later or something. I'm not sure what happened, but
So the fruit of the tree must have been good.
She was. I think she was already a good woman before, and
Uh-huh.
you know, with some added things as you know. And yeah, and my dad has been very faithful always since. You know, my mom too. But my dad served as branch president for years in the small branch there.
Uh-huh.
He's always. I was his home teaching companion when he was branch president because there was no other priesthood in our small branch. So I'd be the one he would take me on visits, you know, even before I was 12. You know, sometimes I'd go with him.
Yeah,
Anyway, so that was
very cool.
good examples.
Yeah. So what would you say throughout your life has been a significant conversion? Like maybe your heart just took it to the next level, would you say?
I think me was my mission, where I just started to really click, like, oh, this is what the Book of Mormon is talking about, and having to know for yourself and testify to other people. I think that was a big turning point for me.
Yeah.
And me, it was when I was about 15. I lived in a place where the only members of the church, youth member of the church, were my older brother, Michel, and I. He's a 13-month older than I am. And so all my friends, all the people we interacted with, they weren't members of the church. Many were actually non-believers as well. You know, they're mostly agnostic or atheist.
Okay.
And so when I was 15, I think in my mind I was thinking, well, there's a lot of things that I'm required to do here, you know, and my friends think of fun things or different fun things to do, you know, and so my thought was, well, if it's true, it's worth it. But if it's not true, it's not worth the effort, maybe. You know, that was kind of my thought. And so at that time, I really studied especially the New Testament. Actually, I remember studying using the Institute manual at the time of the New Testament, going over that, and that's when. And I did also study the Book of Mormon, you know, but my first thought was, you know, do I believe in Christ, you know, or in God even at the time, you know, that was really all that. And yeah, and I don't recall, you know, the day or the time when I knew it was true, but I know I had several experiences around that time where I'm thinking, okay, this scripture, like the Spirit telling me this is true.
Yeah.
This actually happened, you know. And that was the start of my testimony. So at that time, that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to go on a mission. I'm going to do the things to prepare. And so from that age, I knew that these were my goals, you know, to go on a mission, to get married in the temple.
Yeah.
And you know, the mission was a great time too. You testify of truth, and then the Spirit tells you or confirms to you, yeah, that's true as well, you know. And also on several occasions, I remember when I taught with the missionaries, and that's another experience that I had with Amy and her companions, where they taught, and the Spirit was there testifying, oh, this is true. You know, Joseph Smith actually had this vision, and this, the Book of Mormon, is the Word of God. So, yeah, and experiences like that, you know, during my life on a regular basis, I would say.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And we've talked a little bit about missionary efforts and how impactful your mission was in your life and preparing you for a lifetime of service in the church. And likewise you. Is there a specific missionary moment that comes to mind in your life where you felt like you were really doing the Lord's work in that moment, like something that maybe stands out that you'd like to share?
I don't really have one. I mean, there were a lot on the mission, of course.
Uh-huh.
And I would almost say for me, it's more like I do it faithfully, but more often than not, I don't really see a reward. You know, I don't know what's going to happen or where a Book of Mormon is going to go, but I just have faith that it's right and I feel good doing it. So, you know, it's a lot more subtle for me, I guess.
I love that, because that's ultimately relatable. I think that's what we all feel when we do that. And I would say I have the same attitude, because ultimately you can only control what you can control, and you can only choose what you choose. And our job is really to act and invite. And I think that's a great example of, you're not always going to see the fruits of your labors, but ultimately when you proclaim the name of Jesus Christ in a dark and dreary world, every time you say his name, it gets a little bit brighter. So that's a great story. Thank you.
Well, I mentioned to you that on several occasions I would have gone with the missionaries and, you know, could feel the spirit there. When Amy was in Grenoble, actually, several of their friends ended up being baptized, you know, probably close to 8 or 10, I don't know, but which is pretty exceptional in France. But one story I had was happened with a friend, actually. They were members of the church. They were good friends, that family, and when I was 16 or 17, I remember going one day, we were on vacation, staying with them and their family, and one evening we were coming back. I don't know what we had done, but we had, you know, we had fun, maybe to the movie and something like that. And on our way back, so the older brother of that family was my older brother, and he had a sister that, anyway, they decided to stop and go into a nightclub. And it was a Saturday night, 11:30 almost. And I said, no, I said, first, I don't like to go in these kind of places, and I don't want to go there, and it's almost Sunday, so we shouldn't be here. And I told them that, you know, and they still decided they went. So they went in there, and then they came back to get me maybe just about past midnight, you know, or 12:30, and say, come in there, it's fun in here. And I said, no, I'm not gonna go, you know, and I say, you know that, and they said, yeah, but you're in the car alone. I said, I don't care, I'm fine, you know, I'll wait, you know. And in the end, I think they came back earlier than they wanted to, maybe around 1:30 or something like that. And we went home, and, you know, we went to sleep, went to church the next day, and we never talked about this after that. But what was interesting is that 20 years later, the sister, so who was a little bit younger than me, was visiting my parents, and we lived in the U.S. at the time, so I wasn't aware of that. And she told my mom, she said, you know, and she told her about the experience, and she said, you know, it was at a time in my life where I felt really low, and I wasn't making good decisions and everything, and then she said, and this happened, and that made me really consider what I was doing at the time, and kind of rethink my life. And she said that at that time she decided, so, you know, she thought about it. Anyway, but she decided to go on a mission, which she did. You know, she ended up marrying somebody she met on a mission too. That was interesting. And I had never known that, you know. But 20 years later, she told it to my mom. And so my mom shared it with me. She said, "Hey, Bear, you know what? She came to visit. You know, they came to visit us, and she told me that story." I said, "Oh, that's interesting." So, what I like in that is do what's right. You never know. You know, like share Books of Mormon, or just be an example. You never know how you can touch people.
That was super cool. I love that. Just being that example in all places, standing in holy places, in the car, outside the nightclub, on the Sabbath morning, and the impact that made.
We don't always do it right, I assume, but when we do and it works, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. That is awesome. Well, thank you. That's super cool. You have something super relatable that I think we can all feel and get behind and support each other in, and one where you're just choosing to do what's right, and something wonderful comes from an otherwise seemingly inconsequential choice that you're just choosing not to participate in something that you were not comfortable with. So I think those are wonderful examples. Now, with our sharing the Book of Mormon challenge in the ward, you guys have ramped up the last couple of months. I think you've shared about 30 copies of the Book of Mormon in the last couple months. How are you doing it? What are you doing? Where did this spark come from? Because I love it, by the way.
I think it's Amy.
Well, I just loved that you had set this outlandish goal to give 5,000 books, you know, because it's like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those goals where it just reminded me of my mission when we're just really believing and faithful and we think we can do anything. And so I really wanted to participate in that, but I really have felt like I have had no success with stuff like that, or very little, and so I wasn't sure how to do it, and it just didn't feel, there were several ways of trying to do it, like, you know, we even once on our walk brought a Book of Mormon and thought, oh, well, if we run into someone, I mean, we did it all the time as missionaries, right? But it just felt so awkward, and it was like, no, I don't like that. It just feels weird. And I don't know, I feel so awkward sometimes just approaching someone. I just feel like there's so much to say. I don't know how to say it. I don't, you know, anyway. So we gave a few to like workers in our house. We were getting a kitchen remodel. We had some stuff done in the yard, and Hubert gave a couple of Spanish books to the guys that were working in our yard. But I had just been praying about it, like, Lord, help me know how to do this, because I want to do it, but I don't feel I'm effective.
Yeah.
And basically the idea that I had was we have put our testimony in the book.
Yeah.
And just said what we thought about it, put a little bookmark in 3rd Nephi 11, colored a scripture about Christ, and then we just take them to local motels.
Okay.
And we just say, hey, we have these hopeful books, and you could put them on the nightstands in your, so we would take like 10 at a time and say, would you like to pass these out, or do you think they could help anyone? And most people, not everyone, but a lot of them say, yeah, we'll hand them out, and so they just put them in their rooms, and we just pray that they go to someone who will need it and want it, and that seems to be like a good way for me to do it in my cowardly way, you know, because I have such a hard time, you know, talking to people, but I feel like that idea was inspired, and there's enough little, you know, hotels or motels along here that people are mostly receptive, and we hope they'll go to somebody who can really use it. And we put our phone number and the mission home phone number in there too, so if they want to, they can learn more.
That is so cool, because that's something that I've had to work on, is like making up my mind to do it and then do it. Because there's so many times where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, and then like throughout the day, and then I go to say my prayers at night, and I'm like, I totally didn't even think twice about that.
Yeah.
Or see someone go, I should really give them a Book of Mormon, and then you find a reason not to, right? And you're really limiting the Lord when you're doing that, right? But what a cool way to break the burden of entry, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen, but you have the low risk because you don't want to be rejected, right? So you're finding a way to share without straining yourself so much initially. But that builds momentum, because each time you do it, I'm sure the second time you did it was easier than the first.
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah.
I've noticed that.
We've had some success, or
Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Amy has one in the car or in her bag to give to somebody.
Yeah, the other idea I just thought was to keep one in the car, and then if I see someone that needs a ride, or you just never know. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really feel like the Lord answered my prayers because I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you because you started this. You had this goal, and we just wanted to support you, and we wanted to help, and even though I felt like, I don't know how to do this, but when I took that to the Lord, He gave me some ideas, and I feel like that's what He does. If you want to participate, you'll find a way. He'll show you a way.
Absolutely. I think that is just genius, and I think you're following the Spirit, and He's magnificent. Have you noticed blessings in your life from acting on this?
I'm sure there have been. I don't know that we've really noticed anything specific, except I will say that when we do give the books, I feel really good. I just feel very at peace. I feel I'm in a really good mood on that day, and it boosts me up, and I feel right about it. And I'm sure, I think we believe that there will be long-term blessings, of course, and hopefully for the people who get the books too. So, nothing like spectacular, but lots of just continually building and faithful answers to our prayers and stuff.
Yeah. By small and simple means, great things will be brought to pass from that.
Yeah.
It's just such a cool idea. I'm so glad you guys are doing this.
Yeah.
And it's given me ideas that I can act in a similar manner.
Yeah.
And I hope other people see this and realize there are ways for me to share. If just going up to some random person and saying, hey, good news, here's the Book of Mormon. Change your life, change mine. Right? It doesn't have to be this grand gesture, but it can be just every single time we choose to act on that. I think everyone gets better. So that's very cool. Thank you. I think you guys are wonderful. I thank you for letting me come into your home and learn more about you, and I hope that these words edify people in our ward, because when we were talking as a ward mission about setting this goal, and I threw out 5,000 immediately, and everyone laughed, and I laughed too. It's pretty ridiculous. But that aside, I just pray that when we get to December 31st and we're 3,974 books short of our goal, I just pray that there isn't people sitting in the pews thinking, well, I knew we couldn't do it, right? Whatever our best effort is, and however we can live more honestly in trying to follow the words of the prophets that said that this book is the tool to gather scattered Israel in the last days. And that I hope, just like you, we all have intentions in our heart to serve, and I pray that we can be courageous enough to put that little mustard seed in the ground and try in whatever way we can. So thank you guys, this has been wonderful. I appreciate it, you're awesome. Keep going, and thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.